First of all, welcome. My name is Ellen Armour. I should tell you who I am before I jump in. We'll get into myself in a second, but we do have a couple of commissioners here from the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission representatives. We have Commissioner Sarah Parks and also Commissioner Mona Cummings over here. And then we also have representative from Council District 4, Carmen Iniguez. So those folks are in the room. They know a lot of awesome things. They're participative in this process, so it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you. Before I begin, I also want to thank the City of Fresno. So we have a lot of different people in the room, aside from the folks that I just introduced. So if you are a City of Fresno employee, will you please raise your hand? Look at all of you. Fabulous, doing all the things. Okay, and then the other group that's very instrumental to this process of the Cultural Arts Plan and Measure P is NCAP. So that stands for the Network for Cultural and Arts Policy. And they're a group that was hired by the City of Fresno through a competitive process to help us navigate the Cultural Arts Plan process in general. So they're here, and if you're a member of NCAP, will you please raise your hand? Yes. Okay, so they're responsible for all the sticky notes and all the colors. So thank them on your way out, because that's our favorite part. Okay. Let's see. We also have some small group facilitators. So if you're a small group facilitator, will you please raise your hand? Okay, so these folks are going to be very, very instrumental this evening in helping us navigate through the entire process. So they'll be kind of walking through and helping you navigate all the things I'm about to explain to you in just a moment. And then we also have interpreters this evening, so if anybody needs interpretation of any kind, we have Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi, and if you are an interpreter, will you please raise your hand? They're back there. Fabulous. Thank you for your time and your talents. We appreciate it very much. Welcome. My name is Ellen. So I serve a few different roles here in the community. I am the board president for the Fresno Arts Council, and I also serve in my day-to-day position at the Fresno Philharmonic as the director of marketing and development. But first and foremost and for always, I'm a lifelong musician, and the arts are very, very close to my heart. So I'm very pleased and honored to be here with you, helping us through this process this evening. So we are, oh wait, did everybody sign in? First and foremost, all the important stuff? Seeing nods. Nobody's jumping up. Okay, good. Fabulous. And then we do have a website available, so I will share this email address at the end as well. This is really useful because we do have a number of, we tend to have a number of questions that may not necessarily be directly related to the Cultural Arts Plan, or maybe they are and you're on your way home and you think, oh, I should have asked that question, or you're talking to your neighbor and they ask you something about it. This is a great way to get in direct contact, so if you find you have something that you want to share later or a question you want to ask, please save this email address, and again, it'll be up at the very end as well, in case you think of something along the way. And then did you grab, I think everybody got something to eat. Everybody looks satiated. Fabulous. Okay. So the all-important question, why are we here? Oh, and the sandwiches are from Deli Delicious, so just in case you needed to know. Why are we here? First and foremost, we are doing two things this evening. The first is to introduce or expand upon the cultural arts planning process for all of you. And then the second is to hear from you what matters about life and arts and culture in Fresno. So how many, you're all aware of Measure P, more or less? Seeing nods? No? Okay, not everybody's aware. So this is a really good opportunity. So just in brief, Measure P was passed. It's an ordinance that allows for a certain percentage tax. And we are here tonight because a certain percentage of that, which we'll get into in a minute, is allocated for the arts and the parks in Fresno. The Parks Department is well accustomed with this sort of process. They have a Parks Master Plan already in place. But the purpose of this meeting and all of the other elements of this process, which again I'll describe in just a moment, are to create the Cultural Arts Plan. So most municipalities in every major metropolitan city has a cultural arts plan, and it helps dictate the kind of programming and also financial support for the arts programming in that city center. So Fresno is really big. We are kind of a hidden gem in the state of California, but we're also the 5th largest state, or excuse me, city in the state of California. And I actually looked it up just yesterday because I was very curious. We're also the 34th largest city in the United States. So that's kind of a big thing to think about. So we need a cultural arts plan to help us guide the next step in our arts culture here. Kind of jumped ahead, but a cultural arts plan is the guiding document that helps us decide, again, the programmatic aspects and also the financial aspects. And it should reflect the cultural and demographic diversity of the city. It shouldn't be the sort of thing that, one size fits all. So NCAP Part of the reason they were selected, and one of the reasons I'm personally very happy they're here, is that they have a lot of experience throughout the United States, on the East Coast, Central, Midwest, other parts of the United States, in helping to develop cultural arts plans for other cities. And the reason that matters for us is because since we don't have one yet, it could look like anything. But we want it to look like Fresno. So they're physically here with us because they've done a lot of different research, which I'll talk about again in a second. Getting to know our community. They've talked to a lot of council members, they've talked to arts organizations and practitioners, and now they're talking to us, the public, because we matter just as much as all those other groups in terms of determining the arts in Fresno. So the reason why we need it is because it's actually required by Measure P. So part of the ordinance requires us to have this cultural arts plan before we can spend any of the money that's been collected through this year-long tax so far. Specifically for the arts, 12% of Measure P has been allocated to the arts and cultural programs within Fresno. And it's available on an annual basis for competitive grants for nonprofit organizations to establish, expand, and grow cultural arts. So that is why we need the cultural arts plan. And part of that process in developing the cultural arts plan is your feedback as individuals. So there's actually quite a lengthy process. I'm going to take this off of here. Sound effects required. There is actually quite a lengthy process in determining a cultural arts plan. Much of this has already taken place. So the research has been done and it continues to be collected by NCAP. There was a public survey that was open to the public for, I think, the better part of a month, and that just closed on October 21st. We have done focused interviews with local arts practitioners and with artists themselves. And then there has been extensive discussion with council districts and council members. And now we're here. So we're doing the community meetings. This is one of actually 6, so we've added one. There's another one next Thursday, which we'll talk about at the end. 6 in-person, 2 virtual, and one of the in-person meetings is actually a youth meeting that's taking place for high school students and above, which is great because the youth have a very different and kind of, unique perspective on the arts, but their viewpoint is just as important as everybody else's. So this is how the process is developed, how the plan is developed itself. And we are here tonight because we have a 2-part process that involves you, and we need your help. So the first part is a brainstorming activity in small groups for 30 minutes, where we will answer 4 core questions. So there are actually 3 questions, but the first one's in 2 parts. So the first question is, and you don't have to write this down because we're going to have it up here again. But we're going to ask you where you've been, what you've done, and what you like to do related to arts and culture. First, in Fresno, and then second, outside of Fresno. Because sometimes you go places and you experience things and you're like, why don't we have this at home? This is your chance. The second question is, why are these events and activities important to you as far as arts and culture? And then lastly, how could the City of Fresno help to support these activities? Okay, so it's 3 questions in 3.5 parts. So the second part after that is we take all of the information. We're gonna use a lot of sticky notes. It's gonna get real messy and crazy. It's gonna be super fun, arts and crafts. But after that, we're going to take all of the sticky notes and we're going to come up with themes that you guys decide. We don't decide this for you. So you get to talk it through with your table mates, kind of assess, hey, we think that these themes are relevant or they seem to be popping up a lot. And that's what we write down, and all of this information gets given back to NCAP and the City of Fresno, and they use that to help develop the first draft of the plan, okay? So we're gonna get started, and this is where I'll ask our awesome facilitators to help me pass out some sticky notes. You will see some pens, you should see some pens on your table, or we can, yeah, if you two could join us at this table here, that would be fabulous, thank you. They'll bring the materials to you. So each color coordinates with each question, okay? So you're gonna start with blue, and it coordinates with the very first part of the question, which is what have you done, where have you been, what do you like in Fresno specifically. We'll get to the other ones later. You've got plenty of time, don't worry. But we're asking just the first question for now. So where have you been, what have you done, and what do you like to do related to arts and culture inside of Fresno? It can be anything you want. So take it away. And remember, this doesn't have to be just arts related, okay? So it's arts and culture, and that means a lot of different things to different people. Culture can be a lot of things, so make sure you keep it as broad as you feel comfortable. Okay, if you haven't already, we're going to move on to our green sticky notes. So it's the same exact question, but this time for things that you've experienced outside of Fresno. So if you've gone to LA, if you've gone to Morocco, wherever it is. What do you like to do? Arts and culture, whatever that means for you, outside of Fresno. It looks like we're pretty much done with green. So in the interest of time, we're going to move on to pink. So this is a different question altogether. And this question's probably the most important part of why we're here. The question is, why are all of the items that you wrote in blue and all of the items that you wrote in green, why are those things important to you? And why do they matter for arts and culture? What do they bring to your life? What would you miss if they were gone? And I'll also say this is a tempting time to be super diplomatic in responses, but it's important to also say why it matters to you personally. So how it makes you feel, if it brings you peace, safety, comfort, any of those things. Those are all good answers as well. Okay, if you're still writing on pink, I'll give you about 30 seconds to collect your last thought and hand it to your facilitator before we move on to yellow. All right. Last but not least, we're going to do our yellow sticky notes. When I know I said pink was the most important, because it's how you feel, it's still true, but the yellow is where the rubber meets the road. So this is the question of how can the City of Fresno support the activities that you brought up in blue and green. So again, yellow sticky notes indicate how can the City of Fresno support the arts and cultures activities that you're interested in. Maybe both inside the city and outside of it. And that can be anything. That can be resources, it can be a sense of place, it can be funding, lots of different things. Okay, if you're still working on yellow, wrap up your last couple of yellow sticky notes. I'll give you another 1 to 2 minutes and then we can take a break. Okay, if you're still working on a yellow sticky, bring it to a close, hand it to your facilitator. We are actually going to take a 5-minute break to give you guys a chance to use the restrooms, which are out this back door to your left. They are single occupancy, and we ask that you don't shut the door behind you because it will lock. Yes, and we don't want to be locked out. There are also snacks in the back, some refreshments. We'll meet back here precisely at 7:02, possibly 7:03 for feeling fun. And then we'll do our part 2, okay? So 5 minutes and we'll see you soon.